My name is Claire Morgan, and the last thing my father ever said to me before I lost him for 20 years was one word. Run. Not goodbye. Not I love you, just run. I was 11 years old. It was raining so hard that night the gravel driveway looked like a river. I remember standing barefoot beside an old pickup truck, clutching a backpack with 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, and a teddy bear missing one eye. My father never looked at me. He kept staring toward the dark woods behind our farmhouse. His hands shook. His breathing was uneven. Every few seconds he glanced toward the road as if he expected someone to arrive. I kept asking him what I had done wrong. He never answered. Finally, he opened the truck door where my grandmother sat crying behind the wheel. Without looking at me, he whispered, "Take her, and don't ever bring her back." I screamed. I begged. I grabbed his jacket. He pulled my fingers away one by one. Then he finally looked into my eyes. Those blue eyes that had always made me feel safe were filled with absolute terror. Not anger, not hatred. Fear. The kind of fear that belongs to someone who already knows they're going to lose everything. He leaned close enough that only I could hear him. "No matter what anyone tells you?" His voice cracked. "Don't come home." Then he stepped backward into the rain. The truck drove away. I watched my father become smaller and smaller through the rear window until he disappeared forever. For 20 years, I believed he threw me away. I built my entire life around proving I never needed him. I became a trauma surgeon in Seattle. People called me fearless. In emergency rooms, I made impossible decisions every single night. I saved strangers without hesitation. But I could never save one little girl who still stood barefoot in that rain asking why her daddy didn't want her anymore. I hadn't spoken my father's name in nearly 2 decades. Until the phone rang. It was 6:30 on a Tuesday morning. I just finished a 16-hour shift, 3 surgeries, 1 helicopter transfer, 1 patient we couldn't save. My body felt like it had been stitched together with wire. I was halfway through making coffee when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally I ignored those. Something made me answer. A man's voice spoke quietly. "Didar." "Claire Morgan." "Yes, my name is Samuel Brooks. I was your father's attorney." My heart stopped. "I think you have the wrong person." "I don't." A silence. Then, "Your father passed away 4 days ago." The coffee mug slipped from my hand and shattered across the kitchen floor. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I simply leaned against the counter because suddenly my legs no longer remembered how to work. The man continued carefully. "He left specific instructions that you be contacted only after his funeral." I laughed. It sounded strange, cold, almost cruel. "My father buried me 20 years ago. I doubt he has anything left to say." Another pause. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "He spent 20 years trying to keep you alive." I hung up, immediately. It sounded insane, some cruel scam. My father had abandoned me. Everyone knew that. My mother reminded me every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation. He made his choice. Those words had become part of my bones. I wasn't about to let some stranger rewrite history. But then 5 minutes later, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. The doorman said someone in an old pickup dropped it off and left without speaking. Inside was a faded photograph. Me, age 11, standing beside my father in front of our red barn. On the back, written in his handwriting, "If you're reading this." I ran out of time. My hands began shaking. Tucked behind the photograph was a brass key. Attached to it, a tiny tag, "Storage Unit 3D14." My father's attorney called again. This time, I answered. "I knew you'd call back," he said. "What is this?" "A conversation your father waited 20 years to have." "I don't want excuses." "They aren't?" "I don't want sympathy." "You won't get any." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to hear the truth before someone else destroys it." 2 days later, I landed back in the tiny town I'd sworn never to see again. Ash Hollow. Population barely 1,800. Nothing had changed. Same grain elevators, same diner, same cracked sidewalks, same church bell. Even the gas station still had the faded Coca-Cola sign from my childhood. Only I had changed. The people recognized me immediately. They whispered, pointed. Some looked guilty. Others looked uncomfortable. One old woman actually crossed the street to avoid me. Just like they used to. I checked into the only motel in town. Room 7. Same room my grandmother rented the first night she took me away 20 years earlier. That coincidence felt almost deliberate. At precisely 4 o'clock, Samuel Brooks knocked. He looked exactly how attorneys in small towns always seem to look. Gray suit, wire glasses, kind eyes carrying far too much sadness. He placed an old leather folder on the table. "I've represented your father since 2005. I never heard your name, I wanted it that way. I folded my arms. Start talking. Instead, he slid a newspaper across the table. The headline read Local Farmar di Sofa Farafeller 8067. A small picture showed my father, older, gray-haired, thinner, but unmistakably him. My chest tightened. The obituary listed surviving family. My mother, my younger brother Ethan, my uncle David, and then, my name, Claire Morgan, living in Seattle. My father never removed me from his family. Not once. Samuel watched my expression. He never stopped calling you his daughter. I looked away. That doesn't change what he did. No, he nodded. It explains why. Then he reached inside the folder. Pulled out a sealed envelope. My name covered the front, written in my father's handwriting. The same handwriting from the photograph. I reached for it. Samuel stopped me. Not yet. My patience snapped. You don't get to tell me when I can read my own father's letter. He sighed. If you read it now, you'll drive straight to your mother's house. So? And you'll be dead before sunrise. The room became completely silent. I stared at him. What did you just say? He swallowed. Claire, your father wasn't hiding you from himself. He was hiding you from someone much closer. I laughed again, not because it was funny, because it was impossible. My mother. Samuel didn't answer. My uncle. Still nothing. Finally, he opened another file. Old photographs spilled across the table. Bank statements, police reports, insurance claims, property records, medical documents. Every page connected to one person. My father. He pointed toward a faded sheriff's report dated 20 years earlier. Your father reported receiving anonymous death threats. What? 3 of them? I've never heard about this. You weren't supposed to? Another page. Insurance fraud investigation. Closed. Another. Missing financial records. Another. Attempted arson. Another. Livestock poisoning. Each incident happened within 6 months. Before my father sent me away. I looked up. Who was doing this? Samuel's face hardened. We don't know. Then how do you know it involved me? He slid one final photograph toward me. It showed our farmhouse. Taken from the woods. Long lens. Hidden camera. At first, I didn't understand, then I saw it. Standing in the upstairs bedroom window. A little girl, holding a teddy bear. Me. Someone had been watching our house. Watching me. The date stamped on the photograph made my stomach twist. 3 days before my father sent me away. I could barely breathe. Samuel spoke softly. Your father found that camera hidden in the trees. He never told anyone. Not even the sheriff. Why? Because whoever planted it already knew where you slept. That night, sleep never came. Every sound outside my motel room made me sit upright. Every passing truck, every creaking floorboard, every shadow beneath the curtains. Around 2 in the morning, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. I froze. Then, a woman's voice whispered, Claire. I know you're in there. I need to tell you what your father died trying to protect. I walked toward the door. My hand hovered above the lock. Then I heard another voice outside, a man's voice, cold, sharp. She's here. The woman gasped. Footsteps exploded across the parking lot. A car engine roared to life. Tires screamed against wet pavement. By the time I opened the door, the parking lot was empty except for one thing lying beneath the motel light. An old silver locket. The same locket my father had buried with my mother. 20 years ago, I stared at the silver locket lying beneath the flickering motel light. For several seconds, I couldn't move. My heart hammered so loudly it drowned out every other sound. The parking lot was empty. The black sedan that had sped away was already gone. Only the smell of burned rubber remained in the cool night air. I bent down slowly and picked up the locket. It was cold. Heavy. Its tiny hinge was rusted with age. I knew this necklace. My mother had worn it every day of my childhood. The day my father sent me away, it disappeared. 3 weeks later, my grandmother told me my mother had buried it because it reminded her of bad memories. Now it had somehow appeared outside my motel room. Someone wanted me to find it, or someone wanted me to be afraid. I locked myself inside the room and laid the locket on the small wooden table. It wouldn't open. Years of corrosion had sealed it shut. Using the edge of my room key, I gently pried at the clasp. Finally, click, the lid sprang open. Inside wasn't a photograph. There wasn't a lock of hair. Instead, folded tightly into the tiny compartment, was a strip of yellowed paper. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it. Only 6 words were written. Trust Samuel. Never trust David. I read it again. Then again. The handwriting wasn't my father's. It belonged to someone else. Someone trying desperately to warn me. 20 years ago, my uncle David, the same uncle who had practically raised my younger brother after I left. The same man everyone in town described as kind, reliable, quiet. I suddenly remembered something I'd forgotten for 2 decades. The night my father sent me away, Uncle David had been there. Standing near the barn. Watching. Doing absolutely nothing. At sunrise I drove straight to Samuel Brooks' office. He looked surprised to see me so early. Before he could speak, I placed the locket on his desk. His face lost all color. "Where did you get this?" "Outside my motel." He picked it up carefully, almost reverently. "I haven't seen this since," he stopped himself. "Since what?" He sighed deeply. "Claire, your mother didn't lose this. She gave it to someone." "Ooh, my father," I frowned. "Your father?" Samuel nodded. "My dad was the sheriff back then. He kept this as evidence." "Evidence of what?" Samuel opened an old filing cabinet. He removed a dusty cardboard archive box. Across the top, written in faded marker, "Morgan Familo." He slowly opened it. Inside were dozens of police reports. Most had never been filed officially. They had been marked confidential. He handed me the oldest report, date June 12, 20 years ago. My eyes scanned the page. Then stop. Anonymous tip reporting planned child abduction. Victim Claire Morgan. Age 11. Every muscle in my body tightened. What is this? My father received the call. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because 2 hours later. Samuel swallowed. The recording disappeared. What recording? The emergency call. Someone erased it. Woo. Wynne never proved it. But my father copied the report before it vanished. I stared at the paper. Someone had called the sheriff warning that I was about to be kidnapped. Not hurt. Not threatened. Kidnapped. I looked up. My father knew. Samuel nodded. He believed whoever called was telling the truth. Did they say who planned it? Knew. They only repeated one sentence. What sentence? He looked directly into my eyes. Take the girl before Friday. The exact day my father sent me away. The room suddenly felt too small. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. No one spoke, only breathing. Then a woman's whisper. "They know you're asking questions." Click. The line went dead. Samuel immediately stood. "Give me your phone." He checked the caller ID blocked. Disposable number. He looked worried now, much more worried than before. "They found you." Who? He didn't answer immediately. Instead he walked to the window, pulled the blinds closed, locked the office door. Only then did he turn back toward me. "For 20 years. Your father believed there were 2 people involved, not one, 2. He nodded. One inside your family, one outside it. The outside person disappeared years ago, but the one inside never did." I sat silently. Every childhood memory suddenly felt unreliable. Who could I trust? My mother? No. My uncle? Apparently my younger brother. I hadn't spoken to Ethan in years. Even the sheriff's office had hidden evidence. Samuel carefully slid another envelope toward me. "This is why your father never contacted you." Inside was a stack of birthday cards, 20 of them, every birthday, every Christmas, every college graduation, every medical school acceptance, every residency, every promotion. One card for each milestone of my life. None had ever been mailed. I could barely breathe. "I don't understand," I wrote everyone. "Then why?" Samuel finished the sentence for me. "Because every time he prepared to send one, something happened." What? He opened another folder, photographs. Someone had been watching my apartment building during college. Another showed my dormitory. Another, my medical school graduation. Another, the hospital where I completed residency. My blood turned cold. They followed me, for years. They never got close. Your father made sure of that. Tears finally came. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent. 20 years. 20 birthdays. 20 Christmases. Every important moment he knew. He'd been watching from a distance. Protecting me. Without letting me know he was there. I picked up one unopened birthday card. Samuel nodded. "You can read it?" Inside, my father's handwriting looked steadier than I'd remembered. "Happy 21st birthday, Peanut. I hope today someone reminds you how brave you are. If you're smiling somewhere, then today was worth surviving. I miss you every single day. Love always." Dad, I couldn't finish reading. The tears blurred every word. An hour later I drove toward the old farmhouse. Not to confront anyone, just to see it. The red barn still stood. The porch swing still hung crooked. The oak tree where my father taught me to climb still stretched across the yard. Only now, everything looked abandoned, empty, lonely. As I parked along the road, another truck pulled in behind me. An older man stepped out, tall, broad shoulders, weathered face. I recognized him instantly. Sheriff Ben Carter. Retired Samuel's father. He removed his hat slowly. "I've waited 20 years to tell you I'm sorry." I stared. "For what?" His eyes filled with regret. "I believed the wrong person." My stomach tightened. "My mother." He nodded once. She convinced everyone your father had become unstable. He tried warning me. I didn't listen. The old sheriff looked toward the farmhouse. Biggest mistake of my career. He reached inside his truck and pulled out a faded cassette tape. I found this last week. My pulse quickened. What is it? The emergency call? The one that disappeared? I found it hidden inside my late wife's sewing cabinet. I stared in disbelief. He nodded. I never knew she hid it. Can we listen to it? He looked around carefully before answering. Not here. Why? His expression changed. Because Claire, if the voice on this tape is who I think it is, everything you've believed about your family is about to fall apart. He handed me the cassette. Just as I reached for it, a rifle shot exploded across the field. The truck's windshield shattered. Glass rained over both of us. Sheriff Carter shoved me to the ground. Run. Another bullet slammed into the driver's door. Someone hidden somewhere in the tree line was trying to kill us. The first rifle shot shattered the windshield. The second buried itself in the hood of Sheriff Carter's truck. Glass exploded around us. Stay down, Carter shouted, dragging me behind the engine block. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Another shot cracked across the field. The old sheriff pulled his service pistol from beneath his jacket. I retired 6 years ago, he muttered. Funny how trouble never retires with you. I looked toward the tree line. Nothing. Only tall grass swaying in the summer wind. Whoever was shooting knew exactly how to stay hidden. Carter leaned close. They're not trying to scare us. I noticed. They're after the tape. I looked down at the old cassette still clutched tightly in my hand. 20 years of secrets. Small enough to fit inside my pocket. Sirens echoed in the distance. The gunfire stopped. Just like that, the shooter disappeared. No footsteps, no engine, only silence. Deputies arrived minutes later and searched the woods for hours. Nothing. No weapon. No footprints. No shell casings. Whoever had fired knew exactly what they were doing. Carter looked at me. They've waited 20 years. They're not going to make mistakes now. We drove to Samuel Brooks' office. This time every blind stayed shut, every door locked. Samuel found an old cassette player in the courthouse archives. It barely worked. The tape clicked. Weird. Static filled the room. Then, a frightened woman's voice. This is an emergency. My name is Linda Hayes. I work at Morgan Farm. My heart skipped. Linda Hayes. I remembered her. She'd worked for my parents when I was little. She disappeared suddenly one summer. Everyone said she'd moved away. The tape continued. They're planning to take the little girl. My breathing stopped. They've already been paid. Paid? What do you mean? Sheriff Carter whispered. The woman was crying now. I heard David talking. He owes people money. They want the land. The child is the only obstacle. The room became completely silent. Then came the sentence none of us expected. Her father doesn't know. His wife already agreed. I felt every bit of strength leave my body. No, Samuel looked equally stunned. The tape wasn't finished, Linda continued. If Ethan stays, Claire disappears. Everything belongs to David's side of the family. The recording ended with screaming. Then, silence. The tape clicked to a stop. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. For 20 years, I'd blamed my father. The entire time, he'd been trying to stop my own mother and uncle from handing me over. Sheriff Carter closed his eyes. I arrested the wrong man. What? He nodded slowly. The week after you disappeared. I questioned your father for kidnapping. He refused to defend himself. He only kept saying, my daughter is alive. I swallowed hard. He could have told you. He wouldn't. Why? Because whoever was listening would have known where you were. Every piece finally fit together. My father had accepted becoming the town's villain. So no one would search for me. Samuel opened the final envelope. My father told me only to give you this after the tape. Inside was another letter. The last one. The handwriting shook badly. My peanut, if you're reading this, then the truth finally caught up with us. You probably hate me. You had every right to. A child should never have to wonder why her father stopped loving her. The truth is, I never stopped. I only stopped standing close enough for danger to find you. My tears blurred the page. Samuel quietly left the room. Sheriff Carter followed, leaving me alone with my father's final words. The night I sent you away, David gave your mother until sunrise. Either you disappeared, or he would make sure you never reached your 12th birthday. Your mother believed he'd never hurt family. I knew better. I watched the fear in his eyes. He wasn't bluffing, so I made the only choice I had. I made you hate me, because angry daughters never come back home. I couldn't breathe. The next paragraph nearly broke me. Every birthday I drove somewhere close enough to see you. Not close enough for you to see me. College graduation. Medical school. Your white coat ceremony. The day you became a surgeon. I stood across the street every time. I wanted nothing more than to hug you. But every time I reached for the car door, I remembered why I couldn't. 20 years. He'd watched me become the woman he hoped I'd be, without asking for a single thank you. The final page contained only one request. If the truth ever finds you, don't waste what's left of your life hating people who've already stolen enough of it. Love. Laugh louder than I ever could. That will be enough. Love forever. Dad, the funeral had already happened, but Samuel had another surprise. Your father left one instruction. What is it? He wanted you to scatter his ashes. Where? The hill behind the old oak tree. The place where you built tree houses together. That evening, the sky glowed orange over the fields. I climbed the same hill I'd climbed 1,000 times as a little girl. The old oak still stood, weathered, strong, exactly like him. Samuel handed me the urn. I'll give you a minute. I shook my head. No, I've already lost 20 years. I don't want to spend another minute alone. Together, we opened the urn. The wind carried the ashes across the fields my father loved. I whispered through tears. I'm sorry. I should have come home. A gentle breeze moved through the branches. Leaves rustled overhead. For the first time in 20 years, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like forgiveness. 3 months later, the investigation ended. Evidence recovered from hidden financial records confirmed everything on the tape. David had borrowed hundreds of thousands of dollars from dangerous lenders years earlier. The Morgan farm had been promised as collateral. The problem was me, as my father's oldest child. The original property trust couldn't legally be transferred without my future inheritance being addressed. Removing me from the family solved everything. David planned the kidnapping. My mother believed I would simply be sent to relatives permanently. She never knew how dangerous the people behind David truly were. When my father discovered the plan, he acted first. He secretly sent me away under the appearance of abandonment. David lost access to me forever. The lenders abandoned their plan, and my father quietly spent the next 2 decades gathering evidence while protecting the only thing that mattered. Me. David was convicted on multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted kidnapping. He died in prison 5 years later. My mother accepted a plea agreement for obstruction of justice and financial crimes. I visited her only once. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. She asked quietly, "Can you ever forgive me?" I thought for a long moment, then answered honestly, "I can forgive the woman who was afraid. But I can't forgive the mother who watched her daughter believe she wasn't loved." She cried. I walked away. Neither of us spoke again. Ethan found me 6 months later. He stood outside my hospital carrying a cardboard box. Inside were every birthday card my father had written. Ethan smiled sadly. "I didn't know. I believed Mom." "So did I," he nodded. "I'd like to know my sister." I smiled. "I'd like that too." I kept the farmhouse. Not because of the land. Not because of the money. Because every floorboard still remembered my father's footsteps. Every sunrise reminded me that love isn't always loud. Sometimes love looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like paperwork. Sometimes it looks like a father willing to let his daughter hate him. If hatred is the price of keeping her alive. Every spring I visit the old oak tree. I bring fresh flowers. I sit beneath its branches. And I tell him everything he missed. The difficult surgeries. The holidays, the laughter. The ordinary moments. Because after 20 years, I finally know, he never threw me away. He gave up the chance to be my father. So I could have the chance to grow up. And every time the wind moves through those branches, I hear the only word he ever needed me to remember. Not goodbye. Not forgive me. Just run. Back then, it saved my life. Now remembering it has finally set my heart free.